Oh, so limitless.
Hey lovelies, it's your girl Charnel, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my experience in graduate school. Now, a lot of you guys were asking me questions about what it was like, what the application process was like, how the experience was different from undergrad. So I'm going to try and go ahead and answer those questions for you in this video and just discuss to you guys more about my experience personally at my graduate school. So I graduated from my undergrad. In order to get into grad school, you have to have a bachelor's degree. Now, usually the more prestigious schools, they require you to have a 4-year bachelor degree, so an honors degree. And so at the University of Toronto, it's considered one of the prestigious schools where you have to be really smart to get into. So they definitely require a 4-year bachelor's degree. Now, what I did at the University of Toronto was a master's in education, specializing in counseling and psychotherapy. Now, what was required pretty much after my undergraduate degree, I took a year off to work and save up money so that I could at least cover the first year of my master's program. So, the program that I was involved in was 2 years full time. So, I enrolled myself as a full time student. Actually, initially, I signed up to be a part time student, and then I realized, you know what, like, I don't want to take a longer time to do school. So, I'll just save up my money and become a full-time student. So I was able to transfer. Once I got accepted, I was able to transfer to become a full-time student. Now, I completed my application in December before the September that I was supposed to start. So I believe I did my application December 2013 and I began September 2016. I got accepted once I came back from a spring break trip with my girl Brittany, who actually got accepted in the program with me. We came back, and then in the April, I got accepted into the program. And so I was super excited about that. Now, to tell you guys about the qualifications that was required to be accepted in this program, you had to have at least a B plus average. No, not a B plus average. At least a B plus average in your final year of university. You had to have at least 1 year experience in the field. You had to have what else was it? You had to submit 2 references, one professional and one academic. You had to write a letter, a statement of intent, so pretty much explaining the reasons why they should accept you into the program and why you're the best fit for that program. And I believe that's it. Now, the program is very competitive. So I believe in my year, they only accepted 25 students and there were thousands of students that applied. So for me and one of my best friends to get accepted the same year was so exciting for the both of us. We actually never had a class together at all just because she continued with the part-time stream whereas I did it full-time. But nonetheless, we both got accepted and that was just super exciting for us. With my statement of intent, okay, so I mentioned that you need 1 year of experience. So for me, I didn't necessarily have 1 year of experience, but where I was working side by side with counselors. So I spoke very highly about that. You know, sometimes you have to manipulate words to make it seem as if you're doing exactly what it is that you're going into that field. Because realistically, it's like, how are you supposed to get that 1 year experience without any background in what it is that you're going into school for? So I had to manipulate a lot of words. I got a lot of help and feedback from people who I know are social workers or counselors. So they really helped me a lot with changing around the wording of my statement of intent. Also, just speaking highly of where I would like to be, what I'd like to accomplish, and whatnot. So, getting that feedback from other people, especially from people who've been through the graduate experience, was something that was very beneficial for me. I only applied to one university. People thought I was so crazy, especially because University of Toronto is so prestigious. But I was very confident in my statement of intent, and my grades were superb in my last year of university. So I was very confident, and fortunately, I did get accepted. Moving on to September 2014, when I began my program, I was the only black girl in any of my classes. 2 years later, it's still the same thing. I was pretty much the only black girl in any of my classes. Not pretty much, I was the only black person. Also, there were about 20 to 30 people in my classes, depending on which class I was taking. We often had many classes with people who were in the Masters of Education program, but through the guidance counseling stream. So the individuals who did counseling in high schools or middle schools who are guidance counselors pretty much, but some of our courses were different. A lot of the individuals that were in the program were older. So I was one of two, there's two girls, me and one of my colleagues who I was close with, who I became close with throughout the program. She and I were the only 20, how old were we when I started? 22-year-olds in the program. So that was a huge like shock. Not only was it a culture shock, but it was just a huge like wow, like like it was like damn, like am I fit for this program? So at times I'd be second guessing myself, but as I was getting into the program and realizing like it's probably harder for these people who are older, who are in their late 20s or mid 30s. We had people who were in their 40s in our program. It's probably harder for them because they've been out of school for so long in comparison to myself, who's only been out of school for a year. So I'm already still in the groove. I already understand what it's like to manage school, work, and all those things. I didn't have kids, so that was another stress less that was less of a stressor for myself. But again, like it was still shocking because it's like hearing these people speak, it's like, oh my God, am I as smart as these people? Can I sound as educated as them? And then you know what? I just said, I'm gonna be myself, I'm gonna do my thing, and people actually end up loving me for who I was, thinking I was cool. And I just don't know. I don't know if that's because I'm black and I was the only black girl in the program, or if it's really just because my personality is very different from a lot of people. Especially if I don't understand something, I'm one of those people who always ask questions, and I'm one of those people who always challenges the teacher if something doesn't make sense to me. Just because if I'm going to be paying so much money for this and it's my profession, I want to make sure that I am understanding everything to the fullest and that I'm able to apply it to help those individuals who I'm helping on a daily basis. I'm going to actually just bring it back a bit. I forgot to mention that I also needed to have a curriculum vitae or resume to apply to the school as well. So I had to change up my resume a lot and make sure that it applied to demonstrate skills that would benefit me as an individual who's committed, as an individual who can take on the role as a counselor, etc. So I definitely had to apply it to the program that I was applying to, just as you would if you were going to apply to any job. And as well, for my master's, it was actually a course-based master's program. So it wasn't a research-based master's program, which a lot of the programs are. I chose a course-based program for myself because I knew in my undergrad I did a thesis. And in that thesis, I realized like it was the most stressful period of my life during my undergraduate program. And so I realized I didn't enjoy research. And I don't know if it's because I was doing a lot of quantitative data, but I can do a qualitative data research-based program anyway. But anyways, I just knew that research was not my thing. So I decided to do the Master's of Education program rather than the Master's of Arts program because again, that was the only way that I'd be able to do a course-based program rather than a research-based program. So again, if you're looking into a research-based program, this video might not necessarily tell you exactly what the process will be like. We took the same courses as the Masters of Arts students. They just had to write a paper pretty much. So the experience is kind of the same. But again, the research paper aspect was not there for me, so I can't tell you about how challenging that aspect might be with going through classes and all that placement stuff. And again, just make sure, like some people don't even know that they have the option not to do a research-based program master's, and they just don't end up doing it. So at least now you might know that that's an option for you to look into as well. So something that I also wanted to discuss was, so first year, pretty much all my classes, I had classes, and that was it. And then the second semester of my first year, I had to start applying to actual positions where I would have my placement. Some people might consider an internship, but it was an internship that wasn't paid. So it was a placement, and I was not just placed into my placement. I had to find that job. I had to send out resumes. I had to apply to certain places that I wanted to work at. They did have a list at my school of places that have taken on students in the past, so whether it's from my school or from other universities within the Toronto area. So I used that list, and from that list, I was able to determine a few that I want to go to. All of them, of course, were not relatively close to my house because I live in the suburbs. So I applied to 3 places. I had one interview, and this was a place that I really wanted until I got to the interview and I realized the environment was just not for me. I was so grateful that I did not get that interview, but I did learn a lot from that interview and anticipated future questions that I would get in other interviews. My second choice, I got an interview from them, and that's where I ended up being, which was at Centennial College. I could say that now. I couldn't have said that then, just because I don't want people necessarily knowing who I am, and it's just a whole conflict with being a counselor and having your whole life on social media. But anyways, I was at Centennial College, and that was a great experience working with the adult population. I had clients that range from 18 to like 60, because there were second career people who were at that school as well who needed counseling assistance. I helped with career stuff. I helped with personal issues. I helped with a whole bunch of different things that I thought was very interesting but very stressful at the same time. It took me 2 hours to commute to the workplace. I was there 3 days a week. And so the placement didn't even start until my second year. So my second year was the busiest year for me, probably the most stressful year, and then probably the year that I was just over it. So again, I had my placement. I worked full time. I didn't have my placement in my first year. Okay, so let me just backtrack. First year, just straight classes. I had a full-time job as a manager, and I was running my personal training business on the side. I was trying to do the most. That was fine. It worked out. Boom, made money, was able to cover my first year of tuition. Now, second year, my job, the location that I was working at, they closed down, so everyone was laid off. There were so many of us that were laid off. So I continued just doing my personal training business, which was able to cover my expenses and all that stuff within my second year. And I also did the placement, which was pretty much a job that I did 3 days a week, 2 hours to commute from my home, 2 hours there, 2 hours back. Brutal. And that's because I didn't drive, or I'd have to pay for parking. And also I had classes. So it was a lot to manage, just knowing that I still had a full course load. I still had placement, which was work, and I still had my own job to do where I could make money. I was able to pay off my master's. The way I was able to do that was first, the year that I took off in between my undergraduate program and my master's, I saved up enough to cover my first year, and I think my first year was around $12,000. And then for my second year, I was fortunate enough in my first year to get a tax return that was so large, because I never did my taxes for so many years, including my tuition taxes for my undergraduate degree. So I got back about $5,000, I think. So I saved that for a whole year. I saved that for a whole year to make sure that I paid off my tuition. And I applied for a grant that I got for individuals. Again, the grant didn't necessarily apply to me, but I still applied, and I actually got $4,000 from it. So that covered like $9,000. There's $9,000 in my tuition already, and then I was able to save up the other $3,000 to pay off on my own. Now, to answer the question, if doing my master's was worth all that money and all that time, I personally think it was. Now, it's not necessarily to land a job that you may want. I mean, that is beneficial to having your master's as well. It makes you stand out. But I also learned so much about time management. I learned more about myself and who I am as an individual. I learned a lot. I feel like I possibly could have learned that on my own if I just bought the textbooks that we got in class. Because literally all of my classes, it was pretty much represented information that we found from the textbook to the class. Pretty much my classmates taught me, not even my professors. But I'm not going to say nothing. We had to do a big presentation, we had to do a big paper, and we had to do class participation. And that was pretty much how we got our marks for each class. And then at the end of our 2 years, we had to write an exam that covered the whole 2 years from different classes that we took throughout the 2 years. Now, that was difficult, but we had time to prep. And they gave us possible exam questions in advance so that we could prepare and we could practice. So that helped out a lot. But yeah, was my master's a waste? No. Am I going into a job right now that requires my master's? No. But if I didn't have the experience that I had at my placement that I got through my master's, and if I didn't learn the theories that I did learn through my master's, I wouldn't be getting the job. I wouldn't have gotten the job that I recently got. Although my master's is not required, the experience and qualifications that I got in my master's helped me place this position, if you get what I mean. As well, just doing your master's, I think it's just a huge commitment. It shows people who are hiring that you are committed, that you have a sense of discipline, and it just resonates a lot. It resonates well with you. There's no negatives to having a master's degree. Again, you could save that money to do something else, but for me, I mean, I was able to do other things that I wanted to do, and again, at the age of 24, I have accomplished a master's degree and an undergraduate degree, so I feel very good about that. I would encourage everyone to go ahead and do a master's. But again, school is not everything. School might not be for everyone. You could get further without a master's. One thing that I have experienced outside of my outside of my master's though, once I graduated, if I put it on my resume, I was considered overqualified for a whole bunch of positions. So sometimes I even had to take it off so I could get a job during my transition period to actually finding a job that I really wanted to do. Oh, one thing that I forgot to tell you guys is if you're doing a course-based program like myself, a course-based master's, it's not meant to lead to a PhD. So you have to do your master's where you're doing your research paper and then go ahead and do your PhD. For myself, I might be able to go ahead and do my PhD. If not, I have to do my doctorate in education. But in order for me to do my PhD, I could write a statement of intent and have support from my undergrad thesis supervisor to help me get into the PhD program. So it's because I already have that research background and research experience why it's possible for me to go ahead and do my PhD. But again, there's so many things that I have to knock out of the list, or so many people have to communicate to ensure that I could get into that program. But again, if you're choosing a course-based program, it's not meant to lead to a PhD. To get to a PhD, you have to do a thesis either in your undergrad, which again would be harder to get into the PhD because you have to get supporting information to show that you're qualified to do a PhD level research paper, or you have to do a master's of arts or a master's where you're required to write a research paper so that, again, it demonstrates your skills and abilities to be able to write a thesis paper at a PhD level. I hope that was clear, and I hope you guys understood what I was saying there. But again, remember, there are restrictions to a course-based program in comparison to a research-based program in your master's degree. And as well, one thing that I did forget to mention, I'm forgetting to mention a lot of things. At my school, although I got my degree from the University of Toronto, my program was specifically in a school within the University of Toronto. So it was for studies of education. So it's OIZ, and it's for people who are studying specifically education. So it's still a University of Toronto student, but I was within a school of University of Toronto. But I could still do all the activities, etc., that every University of Toronto student was doing. So again, I hope that was clear. I hope you guys understood that. Any more questions, leave them in the comment section below. This video is getting too long, so I'm going to shut up. And I will see you guys in my next video. I'll probably be talking about how you could get an effective resume to get a job or at least get an interview in my next video. So make sure that you guys stay tuned so you guys can learn these life skills that will definitely help you get further in life. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I was gonna say my channel. If you have not followed me on social media, Twitter, Instagram at Lovelies, follow me there, and on Snapchat at Charnel Gray, which is my name, as you guys know. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Deuces.